This is the first episode of what I hope to become a weekly half-hour series here on YouTube. There will be a few short episodes to begin with because I still kind of need to figure things out since I'm so used to trying to cram everything into 90-second videos. And we're at the end of the season, which normally would have been completely done by now, so there's just not as much content. But in this first episode, I'm going to be getting some beds cleaned up and mulched for the winter. I'm going to give you a little tour of some of the stuff that I still have out in the garden. And I do a surprising November jalapeno harvest that I use to make candied jalapenos and chipotle powder. It's November 9th here in Zone 6B, Ohio, and I'm in the process of getting everything wrapped up in the garden for the winter. Normally this would have all been done by now, but it's been unusually warm here this year, so I haven't been in any hurry. The days are much shorter now and it's dark by the time I get home from work, so pretty much everything I do out here has to be done on the weekends. So I'm going to try to get as much done as I can out here, and I'm going to start by removing some of the dead stuff and getting these beds mulched for the winter. I've already been picking away at getting these beds cleaned out, so I got this last zinnia bed here, and then I also have my pepper beds, but I still got some harvesting to do on those. And I'm going to overwinter some of those plants, so I'm not going to rip those out today. I will be getting some harvested, and I'm going to try to do some chipotle powder or something with a lot of the red jalapenos I have on there. Zinnia seeds are super easy to save. You can just pull out the dead petals here, and at the ends of those, you're going to see the seeds there. But if you want to do it the easy way, you could just take the whole dead flower head, throw it in a paper bag, store it somewhere cool and dry until you're ready to plant them next year. I still got a lot of marigolds out here, and there's a lot of bees out here too that seem to be really happy to have them. I do have some dead ones though, and these are another flower that is super easy to save seeds from. You just take your dead flower heads, pull the end out, and those are all seeds there. So you could just take these dead flower heads and do the same thing you would with the zinnias. Now that I got the beds cleared out, I'm going to start getting them mulched for the winter. I use leaves to do that, and I don't have any trees on my property, so I'm going to have to go steal some of the neighbors' leaves. I got 2 garlic beds here that I planted about a week ago, and I'm going to get them mulched first, but I'm not just going to put the leaves on like this, because if I did, they would get wet and matted together, and it would be very difficult for that garlic to grow up through there. So I'm going to mulch these up first. I know some people have issues with mulching leaves, but sometimes you have to do it. After I get my mulch on the beds, I water them in to keep all those leaves from blowing away, and then I'll probably come back in about a week and do another layer of mulch on top of this. I like to have at least 3 inches of mulch on these garlic beds. I got some green onions in this bed that I'm going to leave here to grow through the winter, so I'm just going to scatter some shredded mulch on top of these. Then I'll just go ahead and put the full leaves around the outsides of the bed. I'll be able to harvest green onions here for most of the winter, and then in the spring, the ones that are left, I will be able to save a ton of seeds from those. I got all the beds cleared out and mulched today that I could, but I still got a lot of stuff growing here. I have all the stuff that I planted for fall, and I still have some of my summer stuff in here. I still have 2 big beds here with my peppers in them. They're looking pretty sad because they did get a frost, but there's still a lot of good peppers on these, and I'm hoping to get these harvested tomorrow because I am going to overwinter some of these pepper plants. This is my fall carrot bed here. I got a few radishes in there too, but these are looking really good. I'm going to be harvesting some of these here pretty soon. In this bed, I have Napa cabbage and cauliflower. These got chewed up pretty good by cabbage worms, but they're bouncing back now. There's only a few cabbage worms on here that I've seen. I'm going to go through probably tomorrow and do a good inspection and get rid of whatever I find, and I think they're still going to do pretty well. This is my lettuce and spinach bed here. This is my first time growing spinach, so I didn't realize how slowly it grows. I imagine I'm probably just going to have to harvest what I have here pretty soon because I don't think it's going to be able to handle the freezing temperatures. Lettuce, it's kind of on its way out too. This bed here, we got lots of really good looking beets, and in the back there's some cilantro that's going to flower. This big old arch here that looks like it's dying, which I guess it is my loofah vines, and I got probably 50 loofah on there, which I'm just going to leave on there until we get a freeze. I dug up my Dollia tubers today just before it got dark. What I did with these was we got a frost that pretty much killed the plant, so I left these in the ground for about 2 weeks after that to kind of let the skins on these tubers toughen up a little bit. I'm not an expert on dahlias. I'm pretty new to growing them, but I have been doing a little research, so this is how I'm going to store them for the winter. There's a few of these tubers that are damaged. This one broke off. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, but I'm just going to hang on to it. I just kind of quickly brushed off most of the dirt. You can clean them off if you want to. I think most people don't. After you dig these up, you want to let them dry out a little bit before you put them away for storage. So I'm just going to leave this one in this box here. From what I understand, it's a good idea to leave these upside down with the stem pointing down because that will allow some of the remaining water in here to drain out. You can store these in sand or vermiculite. I don't have any of that stuff. So what I'm going to do when I'm ready to store these after they've dried out for a little bit is just wrap them up pretty well in some packing paper. And then I'll just put them in my box here, vented box, and store them like that. I started growing cut flowers for the first time 2 years ago. This year was the first year I actually took it seriously, and next year I'm going to go a lot bigger with it. I'm going to move into my backyard next year. Right now, my main garden area is in my whole front lot. Next year, I'm going to do 2 big in-ground beds, one for zinnias and one for dahlias. That way I can free up some of the beds in the front lot for more produce. My whole back area is going to be pretty much all flowers. People ask me all the time why I give up so much space in my garden to flowers. And one, because I just really enjoy having them in the garden. 2, all the beneficial insects and pollinators that they bring in. And 3, if you're looking to make some extra money from your garden or homestead, cut flowers is the way to do it. I can sell $15, $20 flower arrangements all day, every day, and I don't even have any idea what I'm doing. I just throw them together. We've been in a drought pretty much all year, so of course it's going to rain on one of the 2 days that I can actually get out here and do something, but we still have a lot to get done. I'm at least going to get all of my jalapenos harvested, and the plan is to make a big batch of chipotle powder and probably a small batch of cowboy candy. Actually, I'm going to be making candied jalapenos, not cowboy candy, because I got a strongly worded email from the person who trademarked cowboy candy saying that we're not allowed to call it that anymore. This is a pretty good harvest for November 10th in Zone 6B, Ohio. I'm going to be giving all these red jalapenos to my brother, and he's going to put them on the smoker tomorrow so I can make my chipotle powder. Since it's raining, I'm just going to take all these green ones and make some candied jalapenos tonight. This is how I do my candied jalapenos. I think this recipe is perfect, but I'm doing half the amount that I usually do because my jalapenos are so hot that I'm the only one that can really enjoy them. The brine I'm making is for 4 pounds of jalapenos, but you could double this if you want. You need 3 cups of apple cider vinegar, 2 teaspoons of salt, 4 cups of sugar, 6 cloves of garlic, 2 teaspoons of turmeric, half a teaspoon of chipotle powder, and 2 teaspoons of mustard seed. I got my 4 pounds of jalapenos here, and I'm using a slicer. I like my candied jalapenos sliced thin. I like to do this on a baking sheet so it catches all the seeds. This slicer's got a little basket in it, and I'll just use that to shake some of those seeds out. And then I'll transfer these into my salad spinner. Once I get my salad spinner filled about halfway, I'll spin these just to kind of get rid of some of those extra seeds. It makes a pretty big difference. You won't have all this floating around in your brine. I got all my pepper sliced up and the brine is on the stove. You want to mince your garlic for this and add it directly to the brine, and then you'll let that simmer on the stove till everything is dissolved. Once all the sugar is dissolved, I bring my brine to a slow boil. Then I'll add all my peppers and we'll simmer this for 10 minutes. It's going to look like you don't have enough brine at first, but once those peppers cook down, you'll be fine. The peppers are done. Now we've got to get our jars filled. I like to fill my jars in the sink because there's a lot less mess that way. Before I get the lids on these, I'm going to clean around the tops of the jars with some white vinegar. Then we're going to place our lids on. And when you put your bands on, you just do them fingertip tight, which means just as tight as you can tighten them with your fingertips. Don't go and crank them down. Now we're going to get these into our water bath canner, and we're going to process these at a full boil for 10 minutes. After your peppers have been in a full boil for 10 minutes, you're going to want to turn off the heat and let them sit in there for another 5 minutes. Those are done. Now I'm just going to leave these on the counter to cool down until morning. It's the next day, and what I'm going to do before I put my jars away for storage is put the date on them, and I'm going to remove the bands from all the jars. The reason we do that is because if something goes wrong and pressure builds up in here, instead of exploding in your face when you open it or exploding on the shelf and sending glass everywhere, it'll just break that seal. And I got my smoked jalapenos back from my brother. He smoked these at about 200 degrees for a little over 2 hours. Now I'm going to get these ready to get them on a dehydrator. You could put these on a dehydrator whole, but I'm going to cut the tops off and slice them in half, which is going to make them dehydrate a lot faster. I just used one of these Nesco food dehydrators for the price. I think these things work really well. I'll just set this at the recommended temperature for vegetables at 135 degrees, and these things should be completely dry by morning. It's the next morning. My peppers are completely dry. Now I'm going to get them into my bullet blender and grind them into a powder. If you're grinding hot peppers up like this, it's a good idea to let that dust settle before you open this. And if you're really sensitive to hot peppers, you might even want to wear a mask. Now I'm just going to drop one of these food grade moisture absorbers in here. Get my lid on. That's it. Homemade chipotle powder. Dehydrating and making seasoning powders is one of my favorite ways to use up excess peppers. This is a smoked paprika that I made this year, and this is a habanero powder. So this was just my trial run, and the content will be improving once I figure this out a little more. But if you have any feedback for me, anything you'd like to see, just let me know in the comments.